In Southern California, Paris Wise, ICT News.
She is a writer who uses her life experiences to shape what she advocates for, like supporting and uplifting strong Native women. Here is this interview with Jessa Calderon from March. So your art takes many different forms, poems and rap songs. Tell us how you describe yourself as an artist.
I guess I would just say artist, but my very favorite thing to do is write. So I write hooks for people, verses for people, and I finally gained the confidence to write a book called Sisterhood, which has dropped almost a year from now, or a year ago from now.
And what's Sisterhood about?
Sisterhood is a book about 7 young women who are growing up in the hood, or as some might call in Los Angeles, the barrio. And these young women are all Native and Indigenous women. Some of them are California Native women, and their stories are being followed from the time of birth to the time of death, but the main stories are taking place in their teenage years. And the goal of the book is to have people read it and watch these young women hold sacred, safe space for each other and bring healing to one another through all their trials and tribulations. And so it helps them to grow into these magnificent women who have healthy lives and relationships and careers.
How did you get the inspiration for this book? Was it something you always knew that you wanted to write about?
It was very life-inspired. Every story in that book is based off of a true story, and there are a lot of facts in that book. So it's just basically life from my perspective.
I think so often when we talk about Native women in books or in movies or in songs, it's not every day that you hear about the resilience of Native women. Maybe talk about that, how that played into the storyline of Sisterhood.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I wanted to do, because I grew up in the Los Angeles Unified School District, where they are known to fail us. And when I say us, it's most children, but mainly people who look like me, dark-skinned. And so one situation I speak of often is having a teacher tell me that I was going to be locked up in juvenile hall at 13, pregnant by 14, and dead by 15, because that's just how it goes for us people. For you people is how he said it. And so I drew from that, right? I was very fortunate to be raised in my Native community and be taught how to sit in ceremony and pull from this loving energy. And even though it was a struggle from the trials and tribulations growing up in the hood and the negativity that surrounds, I always was able to pull from that power. And so I've been very fortunate to do the things that I have done, and what I wanted to do was reach a broader audience in a I guess a quicker way, to help people understand that we could say, and so it is, when they tell us that this is how it's supposed to go for us, or we could say, actually, I'm writing the narrative for myself. And in that book, I give the tools to help these young people, or anybody who picks up the book to read it, to apply those tools to themselves to create an amazing life and a decent life and a healthy life for themselves moving forward after they read the book.
I noticed your shirt, it says Protect Oak Flat. I'm really curious what your thoughts are on the entire movement. There was just a court hearing that happened in Pasadena. What are your thoughts on Oak Flat?
Yeah, well, that actually is my homeland, is Pasadena. So while they were having that court, I was up here in Arizona. Otherwise, I would have been in support. But I am in support because, there's a lot of power in sacred sites, and we know that. We understand that as Indigenous peoples. And the reason why I stand in support of protecting their sacred site is because if this doesn't go through in a way to protect the lands and the peoples of that area, then we already know that everybody's sacred site is going to be further devastated than some of our sacred sites already have been. So if this site can be protected in this way, where on national level we understand and we have seen their site be protected, that gives us all a better chance to keep the rest of our sites that haven't been devastated protected at this point moving forward. So I will fight with them and stand with them, because I understand that if I'm acting as if, well, that's not happening in my backyard and only focusing on my situation, then I can expect the same for others. But if we're standing in support with them, then that makes us stronger together, and that gives me the hope that should I call on them to come stand with us, they will do so, because they'll remember the time that our people stood with them.
Oak Flat is just one example of various sacred sites around the country that are also under threat of being developed. We also saw the Willow Project in Alaska being a big issue that I've heard, at least from a lot of people talking about. I'm really curious, in your opinion, how do you sort of center Native voices in these grander conversations?
It's really tough. I feel like oftentimes we have to kick that door open. You know, I'm grateful for social media, because that has given us a platform to speak our truth. But it's a tough place in Iraq, I think, too, because we have sacred sites that we have been trying to protect, and there has been a lot of struggle in it. And some of our family members, our elders, they don't understand social media, and they're asking us not to use it as a platform. So it's really, really tough in getting that voice centered. But for me, it's just about everywhere you go, having a conversation about it, so that everybody that you talk to now has that awareness of this situation occurring. And this is actually a really good way to have a conversation, if somebody sees your shirt and says, hey, that's really cool. And now you've got a conversation going, right?
Absolutely. Well, Jess, I've enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, an Anishinaabe rapper talks about fatherhood, and we learn when we can expect his next album. Stay with us. Ojibwe rapper Mike Jordan was named North Dakota's Hip Hop Artist of the Year in 2016. For years, he has created a series of hits and also leads hip-hop writing workshops. I caught up with him just hours before he took the stage for a show at Cahokia in downtown Phoenix, Arizona this spring.
Thanks so much for having us. It's been a while since I got to sit down with Indian Country today. As far as the projects that I'm working on right now, the projects I had an album that I'm sitting on, and you know, trying to find time to put that out, but also not trying to rush that, because you know, I'm busy. I have a family that I take care of. I have two beautiful girls, and so my project and inspiration has been just slowly moving towards that. I'm working on a full-length, my second full-length album called Breathe. And there's a lot of just very strong tracks on that album that, you know, tell our stories as Indigenous people, but also there's a lot of healing through it. And that's what my current works are, and I hope to finish here soon.
A lot of people know and recognize your work on Dear Native Youth. That was some years ago, but maybe talk about you know, if a lot of the lyrics and the sentiments in that still hold true today.
Oh my gosh, there's not a day that, you know, that goes by that I don't get a message from our youth. I made that song as a moment to speak to the youth and kind of speak to my younger self. And I didn't know it would do what it did. It was like an open letter to our Native youth, like letting them understand that I know what you're going through, because I've been through it, and just taking a moment to shine the light on them. And it's one of my most powerful songs that I've put out today. And it still gets so much love and appreciation, and I'll be performing that during my set at the Cahokia event, and I'm very excited about that.
You mentioned that you're a dad. When your children grow up and they, you know, fully embrace that song, what do you hope that they're taking away from it?
Oh, got me talking about my girls. I love this question. I just, yeah, for them to see themselves through it, for them to know that their dad like truly cared about shining the light on our Indigenous youth. And it's so crazy that that song is for all these kids that it's touching now, but thinking about my daughters, and if they're going through a tough time, I hope they could tune into that. And yeah, that's a tough question, sorry.
For your next album, I'm really curious. I mean, there's so many topics that you could really delve into. At a high level, what are some of the topics that you're exploring?
Yeah, the whole concept of the album is about breathe. A lot of us, we carry personal traumas, we carry heavy hearts, and the most powerful thing is just breathing and learning to be within yourself in those breaths. Learning to, I do a lot of mindful meditation, a lot of praying, and just breathing and knowing how to breathe is so powerful. And so that whole album, it's you're breathing in and you're breathing out. Conceptually, there's a lot of definitely topics on there. I got a song called "Wave Your Flag," and it comes from the idea of land back and the land back movement and the flag that we can now put on in our front yards that represents us, as the American flag represents Americans, but the land back flag is our flag, and for us to be proud of that. And so there's a song that I have Lila June featured on, and there's songs that really kind of help people understand that spirits are with us. Our ancestors are with us. Spirits are with me. I have a song about our spirits with us, and as we travel and as we navigate these our difficult lives, that we're not alone. And so, there's just a lot of very, very strong topics. And then lastly, there's one of my favorite songs that I finished. It's called "The Storm," and "The Storm" is about emotion. Being a man and being raised by women, I was always taught to have that motion. And the storm is not so much about the storm of weather. It's just letting yourself cry. And it's one of my favorite songs that I'm excited to put out.
I always love to hear from other Indigenous people what land back means to them. What does it mean to you?
Oh, it's such a powerful movement, but land back to me means hope. There's so much hope in the land back movement. It's revitalizing, and there's this ideation that we as people don't own the land, that land owns us. And so, putting the land back in Indigenous hands, in the right hands, is actually giving back to Mother Earth and to the rightful owner of this land, and I believe it's Mother Earth. And so there's just so many different reasons that it can mean, but it just reminds me of hope and giving the land back to Mother Earth.
Well, Mike Jordan, I've loved visiting with you today. Thank you so much.